Hello, AM Snyder here. We have our loving penguin drawing. And to make our lovely penguin drawing, we're going to use, as I keep emphasizing, the snowman or snow person 2-stack ball, or peanut shape. I like saying the peanut shape. In my classroom, when I say the peanut shape, many of my students like to giggle because it just sounds funny, the peanut shape. In order to make that peanut shape with our loving penguin, smoochums, that's what it looks like it's saying, smoochums, I am going to start with a smaller circle and then a bigger circle. And we could trace a circle, if we have things that are circular, we can just place them down and trace them. I like to use my fingers as a guide, I just do. I am using a half sheet of paper from an 8.5 by 11 printer paper, and so you can draw bigger. If you draw bigger, of course, you want to adjust your fingers in your hands. So I like to do the whole letter C thing. I am right-handed, so if you're a left-handed individual, then you might need to adjust accordingly. So if I'm going to use my fingers here to figure out how big to make its head, I just make that letter C. There we are. Okay, I'm just drawing in there lightly. And then I could, of course, do the same thing, or I could just judge and know this is going to be bigger down here, just like that. There is something called muscle memory, where the more you make circles and certain things, you just know how to do it. Hey, look, it's a number 8. Ha ha ha. All right. So now that I have that drawn lightly, I emphasize lightly because we always, as drawing individuals, people who sketch, we draw lightly because that allows us to adjust things, and then we can darken the lines we want. And if you've watched any of the other videos that I've produced, you'll know that we end up erasing and going over it with marker. So let's get into this now. We have our small circle, our big circle, and we are going to connect the two with our wavy kind of line here for its neck. As you can see, that's exactly what we're doing. And then I like to add that little poof of hair with the zigzag line. I enjoy lines and colors and shapes. It makes sense since I'm teaching art. So if I were to draw that, I'm just going to come over with another wavy line. And then I add a zigzag in there. Now you, as the artist, can alter that. You can make it a bumpy line. You could have it go up this way, which would give it like that mohawk effect. You can have the hair go that way. You can have it go over here. There's all kinds of possibilities there. All right. So I'm going to go like that. Of course, it looks different than that one because as we draw, we adjust and make those changes. Now, it's flipper wings here. They are coming in. However, you could have them go up. You could have them come down. You could have one come in and hold the heart. You can have one go up and hold the heart. Holding the heart up would give it a different feel. Holding the heart in, of course, gives it a different kind of approach. So you can see we're going to draw it this way, just since that's what I intended to begin with. But as you enjoy drawing, and if you want to make additional drawings of our penguin, you could add hats and scarves and neckties and bow ties and skirts, sleeves, sweaters. Possibilities are endless after you get the framework of the penguin down. And so let's just bring in our curve line. We'll do the same over here. Curve line. And then we're going to add our curve on the outside. So if I were to continue this around, you can see how there's an oval in there. If I just continue around, before you know it, the penguin's in an inner tube. Oh, that just makes me want to draw penguins in inner tubes now. So this penguin is in the inner tube, and put its flipper wings up like that, and he's bouncing around, or she's bouncing around in the water. Well, now, we just took our very nice kind of Valentine themed penguin and put it into a pool party. Once again, possibilities of how to alter our drawing. Alright, well, let's continue with what we're here to draw. So now I'm just drawing a curved line around to attach, and I'm just going to do the same over here. And we have its bottom, and then you can see how there's so many lines now. If I zoom in, you can see all those lines I drew lightly, which of course I will erase eventually. Okay, and we're going to add a little curved line. Always use your finger as a guide, how big to make those. If you're drawing a larger sheet of paper, maybe use 2 fingers to figure out how big to make them. Curved line. And then we have our bumpy line for those little toe-like things there. Done. To draw our heart, I like to use the letter V. Letter V. And then if you really want to figure this out, you probably know how to make a heart most likely, but I like the idea of using the number 3. And then we make our heart. And then as you see, we have our framework of its face. I was thinking maybe I should have extended the white here, which I'll do in this drawing. And again, we have this zigzag kind of thing here. So you could just make it solid curvy line and be finished with it. You can make it bumpy, which would give it a different feel. You can do the bumpy the other way. I could do a combination, which is exactly what I did there. Just a loose line. Most likely I'll change it when I go over it with Sharpie anyway. And these are circular eyes. If I would use a different shape for its eye, it would create a different feeling, which I actually like that one. And then to make its mouth or its beak look like it's smiling, I use a wavy line. So we have our little curves that are dipping down, and then we attach them with a curve that's going up. So it's like side of a hill, we have a valley, hill, valley, side of a hill. And then we have our letter V that's kind of curvy. Add a little cheek line. It's a happy little penguin, it says it loves you. And then we do this. It's so looking at us. Maybe some eyebrows just to add to it. And before you know it, we have our penguin drawn. Now, before I get any further, I'm examining this as an artist, and it's my personal artwork. You examine yours. Is there anything in it that you want to adjust? I'm looking at this thinking, that's really wide there. I might want to change that. So you have to make those choices as well. And if you're like, well, I really want it to look this way, then make that change. So I'm going to make this come around a little less defined. I think I like that much more. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to not erase it because that would be terrible. I'm going to use my black marker, permanent marker, Sharpie, to trace over it, and then I'm going to add some background elements to it, and then we can color it in. And whenever I trace, I tend to somewhat stay with my lines I originally drew, but then I'm not really that concerned because I have the base down, So if I get off here or there and it's not exactly the way I want it, it's fine. It'll still look wonderful, maybe even better. Now when I'm finished and I erase all this, we'll see how these eyes compare to the ones in the example here. And I'm sure you could probably come up with your own shapes to define what its face looks like. Okay, and then I also have an additional heart inside the heart. You could decorate the inside any way you'd want. You can also write in there. If you're going to use this as a card, you could also make these, make a set of cards. You just need to scan them into a computer and put them into, I personally use PowerPoint, but I'm sure there's other kinds of software out there where you can reduce the size and get 4 to a page and color them and hand them out to people. You can even have 2 to a page and then cut them in half when they're printed and fold them and so on. Alright, it's traced. Now we are going to get that eraser as mentioned. I drew that and my first thought was, oh, it's a unicorn penguin now. And then I thought, oh, it's a Hershey Kiss. Oh, it's a little party hat. I really want to put a hat on it now. You know, that is just what it is. Ideas keep springing up as we draw. Okay, once again, if you've seen another video, I've done this where I just stretch my fingers out and hold the paper down, because if you don't do that, it's going to wrinkle up on you. So you want to be really firm on the paper so it doesn't wrinkle on you. And as you go across, continue to keep it firm, firm pressure on it so that your paper doesn't wrinkle up. Long strokes. You could, of course, do smaller strokes as you erase. I just like to make sure that I point out the wrinkling possibility if you don't hold it down nicely and you're careful. Okay, and now I'm going to carefully brush this away into its own little pile. You can always shake the paper into a trash can. Out of the way. And I see there's a little bit of pencil there. Most likely coloring over it will go away. Alright, now it looks pretty clean and we can add some background elements and surrounding things around it. I have it on a little iceberg floaty thing here. It could just be on snow. You can have a little igloo drawn back there since that's kind of a thing people do with our penguin theme. You could have a little rainbow coming down, sunlight coming through clouds. Oh, I like that idea, sunlight coming through clouds. Alright, so I'm going to take my pencil, and I think that I do like this idea of the little ice floaty thing. So if I'm going to draw that, I'm going to start again, like the letter V. Letter V. Very wide, diagonal lines. And then I'm going to take this line right here and think about that direction as I go across. I'm not drawing on the penguin, I'm kind of air drawing to keep the idea of the direction of that line, so when I come back here I can extend it in that same direction. Across, air draw. I call it air draw, which means my pencil's not touching the paper, it's just hovering above it. Okay, and then same with this side. So I'll have my line go back in space, that directional line. So as I go back, it goes like that. See how they repeat. And then we draw a short vertical line, and we repeat this. Now, instead of repeating this, since it's floating in water, right, it makes sense to make what looks like water bouncing against it. So just kind of a wiggly line, wiggly zigzag, bumpy combo line. And if you can't see that, I'll just go over it a little darker here. And then some wavy lines just to show that the water's moving. Maybe an area where it shows land. And I'm going to put in this cloud like I mentioned. So I'm going to add a bumpy line up here. Have some eraser in there. There we go. Add my bumpy line. And then some sun rays peeking through. And maybe there's kind of ice, chunky snow, Arctic. Land mass back here. A hole in it. One of those polar regions of snow and so on. Alright. Now, it looks really fun. Get my Sharpie back. Trace over it. Let's get a bumpy line. Oh, I didn't explain what I did there, did I? Well, let's go back to it. These diagonal straight lines, I think of like a point up here where they all come from. So if there's a point right here and I come down, and that point, I direct my lines from that one point, and space them out, that would make the most sense. And so yeah, I'm not totally following my pencil lines, but I know what I have there. Done. I drew that in there, and I'm thinking I don't want that there now, so that's the great thing about pencils. We can try things out and then erase. The other thing you might want to think about, depending on what you're using to trace with, you make sure it's dry before you erase. If you're using something different than a Sharpie, Sharpies can also still be wet. So you want to be aware that you don't erase if it's wet, because then of course it will smear. And then you'll be upset because you just made your wonderful drawing and now you have to redo it. And if you do have to redo it, you can always just lay another piece of paper on top of it and trace it, and then you have your redo. Oops. And my little pile of eraser here off camera there. Okay, so now I did use crayons, depending on what kind of paper you are using. If it's heavier, you can always paint it, or use other kinds of media, excuse me, it's called media, and color pencils, of course. As I like to explain, I don't really care for color pencils because you have to sharpen them so much, and sometimes their points just break, and it's just a little frustrating for me when I just want to color. But paint could be fun if you have a heavier paper. Let's start with that black. I had texturized my penguin with these little short lines. So I'm going to, first of all, color very lightly with my black. Less pressure, a light value of black. I'm not going to use a gray crayon because it's not a baby penguin, I believe, if I'm correct. Baby penguins have that gray tone to their feathers, if we call them feathers. I might need to do some research on these penguins. I know earlier I mentioned Arctic, and then I was hesitant because I was like, I get that confused, because I do know, I believe the polar bears are in the Arctic. It's the penguins that are in the, there's the Arctic and the Antarctic. The South Pole and the North Pole. Oh, I just say that. Alright, so I've colored lightly, and now I'm going to go through and I'm just going to add these short straight lines like they're following each other. And if you make them so they follow each other, it looks better than just randomly attacking the paper. And also the direction makes it look like the correct way it would lay. So if I make them go up and down, make these go out, and then go up and down as they travel, even a little curve action to them, pressing of course harder so that we can see them. I think my crayon is not making the marks as nicely because of how flat it is. So if you have a pencil sharpener, you can sharpen the crayon in the pencil sharpener. Just remove the paper off the front of it. I believe the paper clogs it or dulls the blade that's in there. It makes it difficult to sharpen. Done. And wow, she looks really cute. Alright, now I'm going to use orange, but you could also use yellow or red orange or yellow orange, or it's your drawing. So I did use short lines to texturize it. I'll just color this solid. And then find those loving colors, color it. I was going to add a little bit of rosiness to its cheeks because that's always fun, right? Oh, look at that. How much more cheerful that is. And then with the water, I just used blue and colored lightly with blue. However, I did use blue-green back in the sky here. So since I don't have a lot of sky to share that with, I'll do it in the water. I'll get my blue-green here. I like to color in the direction that makes sense. The water's going back and forth. So I'm going to color in a horizontal direction, lightly. If you want it to look like the foam of the water, where it's like more highlighted and white, then leave the area white. And that will make it look kind of foamy. That's what I did here. Left some areas white. I'm just going back and forth horizontally, coloring very lightly. And get my blue, color maybe a little darker here and there, just to give that interest of tone or contrast. Some interest, overall, some interest. So it's not all flat in color. Very pretty. Okay. And then I do have a gray crayon. If you don't have a gray crayon, use a pencil. I could show both actually. I'll use the gray crayon down here where it will create a shadow. Yeah, and I'm going horizontally because that makes sense. If I go vertically, it will make it look awkward. Like the shadow doesn't look correct. And even here, you could color behind the wave, the foam, make it look like there's a shadowing effect there. So this is in front and it casts a shadow in here. The light is coming down, so this would be more lit up. And then, as mentioned, if I take a pencil instead of a gray crayon, and you use the side of the pencil, and you can create the same effect. Like you can go in here and do the same thing. So if you don't have a gray crayon, okay. And then we color in the beams of light. I get yellow. I'm going to move that out of the way there because I'm going to turn this. I'm going to color this in. Oh, I picked up some of the black, so beware. It doesn't bother me because I think it looks fine, but don't keep picking that up because then your light will be dirty, and that would be weird. We don't want dirty light. It just sounds weird in itself. Interesting thought process. Dirty light. Okay, now I don't want all that to be the same, so I'm going to get some orange and make it a little deeper in here. And then maybe alternate, create a pattern effect. That's nice because that orange, if you look at it, carries throughout, keeps it more unified. It's a very nice effect. Okay, and even if I wanted to, I carry this blue in here. I'm going to be careful because I already made that yellow. If I just add a little bit of blue down in here, if I am not careful, it'll look green because, well, blue and yellow make green if you didn't know that. Could have did this beforehand or left the white there to make sure. But, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we come up with new ideas as we move along, and, well, I just thought of that. And then maybe here it would be more blue because this would be a hole in this ice or snow structure back here. And even that gray tone, if I wanted to make this look a little more exciting, just add some gray tones in here. Wiggle, wiggle. Wiggle, wiggle. Even add some yellow on the tips of this just to show the light is hitting it. Maybe pink on the tips of it to play into that loving color. Let's do that. Yellows and pinks together are pretty. It's very slight. It's very slight. Maybe I can zoom in so you can see. It's not that noticeable, but it keeps it from being flat and white. And before you know it, we have our very loving penguin. Very loving penguin. Oh, look at that. There's a set now. And you can see how just altering the background, altering its face, creates such a different effect. So think about what you can do to make yours. Think about what you can do to make yours your own. And just by making the background different, or even its face different, gives a different feel. So think about how you can make yours your own. Well, I've enjoyed working through this with you. I hope you've enjoyed it too. I'm Snyder from Snyder's Sunshine Art Studio. Enjoy.